السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. So today is lesson number 6 in our series on taking benefits from the book Madārij al-sālikīn of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala. And in the previous lesson we looked at how Al-Fatiha comprises, by way of the statement اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, all the various types of guidance which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala imparts to His creation. And there were 10 types altogether, and so from them was at-taklim, which is speech, direct speech to a messenger, as happened with Musa alayhi salam. And then after that there is al-wahi, which is quick, rapid, sending of information, imparting information in a way that only Allah knows. And then there is al-rasul al-malaki, which is the medium of the angels, sending the angels, which is the likes of Jibreel alayhi salam. So these three, we said, are unique to the prophets and messengers. Anyone who claims such revelation in this way is besides, after the messenger of Allah sallam, is a kadhab, is a liar. This is not possible. He is an imposter. After that, then there are numerous other levels. From them is at-tahdith. And we said that though this was common in previous nations, like Bani Israel, that was because the guidance that they received wasn't the complete and perfected guidance of the last and final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So for that reason, there would be many among those nations who would be spoken to. They were muhaddath, right? Which means that things are put into their hearts, their minds, by way of the angels, and then the affairs happen to be as they were, spoken to. But with the sending of the messenger of Allah sallam and the revelation of the Quran and the perfection of guidance by way of the Sunnah, then because of that perfection, then in this ummah, this is something very, very rare. And that's why the messenger of Allah sallam, he said that if there was to be in this ummah for Umar ibn al-Khattab, and we know that Umar was given, the tawfiq to speak correctly in many, many, many issues. So this was number 4. So that's something rare. Okay. After that, what is the next most important type of guidance after the first 3? If we put the tahdith to one side, because it is very, very rare in this ummah. Well, it is al-ifham. It is fahm. It is Allah giving fahm to a servant, to an individual. This is guidance. Allah guiding those from His creation who He intends and desires to guide, which is gaining comprehension in the religion. That's why the hadith, as you very well know, that whomsoever Allah intends to show goodness, yufaqihu fi ad-din. Allah grants him comprehension of the religion. This is the best type of goodness. So this is al-ifham. Then after that there is al-bayan, al-bayanul am, which is the general explanation, which is simply Allah's ayat, which are heard and recited, and Allah's ayat, which are observed and reflected upon. Right? So this is something present. Everybody can see this, and they receive guidance, meaning in terms of ilm and admonition. After this is al-bayanul khas, which is a specific type of guidance in which Allah, He removes barriers from people being guided. He gives them tawfiq. right, and removes any barriers from them being. This is a specific type of guidance now by which Allah guides specific types of people. Then there is al-isma'. Al-isma' is Allah makes someone to hear. This is not the hearing of the ears, because everybody hears. This is the hearing of the heart, where it reaches their heart and they take admonition and they are guided. And then there is al-ilham, which is just general inspiration. People are inspired, they are put through certain situations, experiences, and they think and reflect, and so Allah directs them and inspires them as to their guidance. And finally, there was al-ru'ya al-salihah, the righteous dream, and this again returns to different types. The dream which is from Allah, the dream which is from shaitan, and the dream which is from the self. So we covered that in the previous lesson. This was after we looked at many other meanings which are in Al-Fatiha, from them Tawheed, Allah's names and attributes, At-Tawassul, and all the other things that we mentioned previously, and how a servant, when he recites Al-Fatiha, he tries to ponder and reflect and try to bring these meanings to mind when he's in the prayer, because that is what gives you the benefit. When you enter into the prayer and then you leave the prayer, you want to have the benefit. This is by way of understanding all these things and bringing them to mind. Now, today's lesson is a tremendous lesson, and it relates to how Al-Fatiha is a cure and a healing. It is shifa. And so this is why in the next section, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah says, اشتمال الفاتحة على الشفاءين شفاء القلوب وشفاء الأبدان. Al-Fatiha comprises two types of cures. The cure for the hearts and the cure for the bodies. The cure for the hearts and the cure for the bodies. So he begins by saying, فَأَمَّا اشْتِمَالُهَا عَلَى شِفَاءِ الْقُلُوبِ فَإِنَّهَا اشْتَمَلَتْ عَلَيْهِ أَتَمَّ اشْتِمَالٍ فَإِنَّ مدار اعتلال القلوب وأسقامها على أصلين فساد العلم وفساد القصد. So he says, as for this issue, as for Al-Fatiha comprising the healing of the hearts. So we start with the heart, because the heart is the king of the body. He said, Al-Fatiha comprises cure for the hearts in the most complete of ways. And this is because when we look at how the heart can be sick, how can the heart be ill, how can it be sick, what does it return to? It returns to two principles, right? So the sick heart, the diseased heart, the heart which is ailing, all of that will come back down to two principles, two things. It is either the corruption in knowledge, fasad al-ilm, or it is the corruption in the qasd, the intent, the desire. Then he says, وَيَتَرَتَّبُ عَلَيْهِمَا دَاءً قَاتِلًا. From these two things, which is the corruption in knowledge and the corruption in intent, out of that, so when the heart becomes corrupt in these two ways, then there are two diseases, fatal diseases. These are diseases that can kill the heart, right? Just like there are fatal diseases to the body which will kill the body, then these are fatal diseases which can eventually, they can kill the heart. He says, وَهُمَا الضَّلَالِ وَالْغَضَبِ. الضَّلَالِ وَالْغَضَبِ. So what are these two fatal diseases? It is al-dalal, which is misguidance, and it is al-ghadab, which is anger. So he says, فَالضَّلَالِ نَتِيجَةُ فَسَادِ الْعِلْمِ. So misguidance is a result of the corruption in knowledge. So in ilm, there is some corruption. وَالْغَضَبْ نَتِيجَةُ فَسَادِ الْقَصْدِ. And as for anger, then it is the result of the corruption of the intent, a person's qasd, his desire, his intent. وهذان المرضان هما ملاك أمراض القلوب ملاك أمراض القلوب جميعها. And these two particular diseases, which is al-dalal and al-ghadab, they are the foundation and the basis for all of the diseases of the hearts, right? So there are many diseases of the hearts. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he has a risala, Amradul Qulub wa Shifa'uha, and in there he lists many of the types of diseases which are mentioned in the Quran. From them is, he mentions from them, al-jahl obviously is a disease of the heart. Al-jahl, it is considered a disease of the heart. The absence of knowledge, just like in the body, the absence of nutrition, just like Ibn Taymiyyah explains in the same risala, the absence of the right nutrition will lead to the disease of the body. The body will be diseased. In the same way, the absence of sound knowledge, then that will be a disease, which is jahl. Likewise, al-hawa, which is following desires, is a disease of the heart. Ash-shuh, ash-shuh is being covetous, coveting what is with other people of possessions and wealth, and this is a disease of the heart. Al-bukhl, which is stinginess, miserliness. This is a type of disease of the heart as well. If you think about these individual diseases, what do they return back to? You see, they go back to corruption in knowledge. Likewise, al-hasad, for example, al-hasad, it is a corruption in knowledge and it is a corruption in intent. Because, first of all, a corruption in knowledge is because you should realize that everything is by Allah's decree. Allah gives to whomever He wills. He favors some, He disfavors others. He expands the rizq for some, He restricts it for others, all because of wisdoms that He knows. So, for you just to be envious of someone else, this now is a corruption in knowledge. And then for you to want for that goodness, for it to end in that person, you want the ni'mah to end, this now is corruption in the qasd, right? So these two foundational diseases of the heart, from them spring all the other diseases of the heart as well. So we mentioned some al-jahl, al-hawa, al-shuh, al-bukhl, al-hasad, al-shahwa, which is lusts and desires, al-ishq, which is infatuation, like infatuation. And there is al-gham, which is grief and anxiety. Grief where you are filled with grief because of some calamity, some hardship which you couldn't get over, because of lack of iman, lack of tawakkul, lack of certainty in belief in al-qadar. Likewise, he mentions also al-ghayz. Al-ghayz is a type of rage that has to be extinguished. An example would be when someone's family member is killed, for example, right? There's ghayz, there's rage inside that family's relatives. And so the Sharia has come to satisfy that rage. And that's why from the treatments of that is to allow retribution, the law of retribution, right? That you can have that person killed in retribution to remove that ghayz, which otherwise would remain as a disease of the heart and lead to other things, right? So the Sharia has come to channel these things which exist in the heart, whether it's shahwa, whether it is ghadab, whether it is other things. Then in fact this is something that will be covered in later lessons. Ibn al-Qayyim gives a beautiful example, a similitude, to show how the Sharia comes and it takes things which Allah has put in a man, which is shahwa and ghadab and other things which are raging, fiery, which can be acted upon in wrong ways, but it channels it in the right way, right? So the point being that al-ghayz, which is this rage, is a disease of the heart. Al-hazan, al-huzn, this again, sadness and grief, this is a disease of the heart, right? So all of these things, ash-shak, likewise, to be doubtful, is a disease of the heart. to not know whether it's this or that and to be in doubt. So all of these, this is fasad fil ilm, corruption in knowledge, a shak. So the point being that when we go back to Al-Fatiha, we see that within it is an indication at the end part of Al-Fatiha, there is an indication in the most beautiful and succinct of ways of the two types of diseases from which all other diseases spring, meaning of the heart. And they are fasadul ilm and fasadul qasd, which come back to ad-dalal and to al-ghadab. Then he says after this, so now we understand the asl of the diseases of the heart. How does Al-Fatiha contain the cure for both of these things? Right? Corruption in knowledge and corruption in qasd. Well, the first one he says, فَهِدَايَةُ الصِّرَاطِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ تَتَضَمَّنُ الشِّفَاء مِنْ مَرَضِ الضَّلَالِ. So, the cure for corruption in knowledge is to say, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Why? Because we are now asking Allah for correct guidance, sound knowledge, which is knowledge of His revelation and the explanation of that revelation. This is sound knowledge. And so therefore he says, وَلِذَلِكَ كَانَ سُؤَالُ هَذِهِ الْهِدَايَةِ أَفْرَضَ دُعَاءٍ عَلَى كُلِّ عَبْدٍ وَأَوْجَبَهُ عَلَيْهِ كل يوم وليلة في كل صلاة لشدة ضرورته وفاقته إلى الهداية المطلوبة ولا يقوم غير هذا السؤال مقامه. He says, for this reason, this question or this request is the most obligatory supplication upon every servant. So the greatest, most obligatory dua for every servant to make is to say, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. It is the most obligatory in every day and every night, in every prayer. Why? Because of the severe need, the necessity and the need for the requested guidance. And there is no other supplication that can be found that can take the place of this supplication, right? There's nothing that can replace this simple, in Al-Fatiha, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. So this now is the cure for what? The cure for fasadul ilm, or for jahl, for ignorance, which is like corruption in knowledge. As for the other one, he says, وَالتَّحَقُّقْ بِإِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ عِلْمًا وَمَعْرِفَةً وَعَمَلًا وَحَالًا يَتَضَمَّنُ الشِّفَاء مِنْ مَرَضِ فَسَادِ الْقَلْبِ وَالْقَصْدِ. So now for the other disease, which is where you have a corruption in intent, then when you actualize the statement إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ in terms of knowledge, ma'rifah, acquaintance, action, amalan, and halan, meaning that this ayah becomes your hal, that this is how you are. You are worshipping Allah and you are seeking aid from Allah in that worship and in all your affairs. So it becomes a hal for you. When you establish that, this now becomes يَتَضَمَّنُ الشِّفَاء مِنْ مَرَضِ فَسَادِ الْقَلْبِ وَالْقَصْدِ. This now is the cure for the corruption in the heart and the corruption of the intent. Now, so once we've established this now, that اهدنا الصراط المستقيم is the cure for the disease of the heart, which is fasad al-ilm, which is dalal. So we ask that from Allah, then we pursue the paths. And then إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين, which is ubudiyah and isti'anah. Then this now is the cure for the corruption in intent, in qasd. Now, Ibn al-Qayyim goes on to mention something very, very important. And he goes on to say, he basically, he says, فَإِنَّ فَسَادَ الْقَصْدِ يَتَعَلَّقْ بِالْغَايَاتِ وَالْوَسَائِلِ. Okay, so now we're going to focus a bit more on the fasadul qasd, corruption of intent. Whenever someone has a corruption in intent, then there are two things. It is the goal that he is seeking, the objective, which is the ghaya, the objective that he seeks, and it is the wasa'il that lead to it as well. All right? For example, simple example, someone might be seeking leadership, someone might be seeking fame, someone might be seeking indulgence in prohibited things. That's the ghaya, that's the objective. Then in between, so he has the qasd for that thing, which is a corrupt qasd. Then in between, there are the wasa'il that lead him to that objective. So likewise, he has to have qasd, he has to intend and desire and want the wasa'il that lead him to that as well. So there's two things. It is either qasd for the qasd for the ghayat, for the ends, and then the qasd for the means that lead him to that. So he says, فَإِنَّ فَسَادَ الْقَصْدِ يَتَعَلَّقُ بِالْغَايَاتِ وَالْوَسَائِلِ فَمَنْ طَلَبَ غَايَةً منقطعة مضمحلة فانية وتوسل إليها بأنواع الوسائل الموصلة إليها كان كلا نوعي قصده فاسدا. So, in other words, saying generally that anyone who seeks an end, an objective, which is an objective which is going to end, it will perish, it is temporal, right? Meaning from the objectives of this world. Like you see the people of disbelief, they seek objectives. Basically, what are the objectives? It is either status, it is wealth, it is power or pleasure, right? So when you see the people of disbelief, why are they upon their disbelief? Why do they reject the truth? What is it that's taken them away? Well, they're either after status, they want the position and the fame and the status among the people. They can't let that go. Right? They won't let that go. Like the Quraysh, for example, they have the status of the loftiest, most noblest of the Arab, and Islam came, and so they don't accept Islam, right? Because honor is on the basis of Iman and taqwa. It's not on the basis of lineage and whatever, right? So sometimes it is status, sometimes it is wealth. A person is unwilling to let go of the wealth, the riches, the possessions. Why? Because he has to give zakah. Why? Because he has to, and the wealth often is tied to other things as well, shahawat. So shahawat is another one, pleasure, the pleasures of the world. He cannot give up the drinks, the alcohol, the women, all the rest of it. And also it is power, just to have that power and authority. So these are some of the reasons. So these are ghayat. These are objectives and ends that people have, which are temporal. They will perish. They never last. They will dissolve and disappear, as the word used by Ibn al-Qayyim. And then, وَتَوَسَّلَ إِلَيْهَا بِأَنْوَاءِ الْوَسَائِلَ الْمُوصِلَةِ إِلَيْهَا. Then he finds all the ways and means. So if you look at these people, in general, people of disbelief, and likewise even among the Muslims, they have these diseases. They have the objective, which is the end, to have fancy cars and to this and that and the other. And then they have the wasa'il in between that lead them to those things. So he says, so whoever does this, kana kila naw'i qasdihi fasidan. So both of the two qasds that he has here, for the ends and for the means, both of them are corrupt, right? So meaning everything he's doing now is just, it's a disease of the heart, it is corrupt. Then he goes, وَهَذَا شَأْنُ كُلِّ مَنْ كَانَ غَايَةُ طَلَبِهِ غَيْرَ اللَّهِ وَعُبُودِيَتِهِ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ وَمُتَّبِئِي الشَّهَوَاتِ. Okay, so he says, this is the affair. So when you look at the mushrikeen, the polytheists, and likewise, you look at those who follow their lusts and desires from among the Muslims, it means among the Muslims, those who have there's like no objective behind, there's no lofty objective, right? So you want power, you want fame, you want cars, you want women, you want this, you want that, you want this, what's the ghaya behind it? Like the wisdom, and there isn't anything, right? There's nothing behind it. And he then goes on to explain in a step-by-step way, how the people who have these ghayat and who have this corruption in qasd, the different steps they take in order to reject the truth and to avoid the truth, right? So remember, this is the disease of the heart that causes people to reject truth, to reject guidance, right? And so when they are pursuing these goals, the ghayat, like the wealth and the status, the power, the fame, and all these other things, the shahawat, then when truth comes to them, then they are averse to the truth and they take a number of steps. So he says, وَأَصْحَابِ الرِّيَاسَاتِ الْمُتَّبِئِينَ لِإِقَامَةِ رِيَاسَتِهِمْ بِأَيِّ طَرِيقٍ كَانَ مِنْ حَقٍ أَوْ بَاطِلٍ. Right? So basically all these are different types of people. The mushrikeen, the people of shirk and kufr, right? They have ends and means, ghayat and wasa'il, which are corrupt. Then you have those who follow their desires in lusts and pleasures. Then you have those who seek the riyasat, meaning those who seek the positions and the status, the power, who follow, they want to establish their riyasa, their leadership, through any way possible, whether it is through haqq or whether it is through batil. So he says, when the truth comes to these types of people, of whom he's given three examples: the mushrikeen, people upon shirk and kufr, the followers of their lusts and desires, or the people of wealth, authority, power. He says, when the truth comes, which opposes what they are upon, then the first step they will take, like if it comes on the path, they will take it and they will trample on it. They will crush it and smash it. Right? So he says, طَحَنُوهُ وَدَاسُوهُ بِأَرْجُلِهِمْ. Right? So they will just totally crush it and put an end to it, and that's it. فَإِنْ أَجَزُوا عَنْ ذَلِكَ دَفَعُوهُ دَفَعَ السَّائِلِ. If they are able to totally smash and erase this truth which has come, so they can't smash it, they can't put an end to it, now they are going to, oppressively and tyrannically, they will try to attack it. They will attack it. If they are unable to do that, فَإِنْ نَجَزُوا عَنْ ذَلِكَ حَبَسُوهُ فِي الطَّرِيقِ. Right, so if they can't fight against it physically and in that manner, they will then try to hold it back and restrain it from the path. If then they are not able to do that, فَإِذَا لَمْ يَجِدُوا مِنْهُ بُدًّا, like if they can't do that now, and the truth comes and it's there, so now what they do, they will give it, he says, أَعْتَوْهُ السِّكَّةِ وَالْخُطْبَةِ. What he means here is, he means that they will give it like, they will speak about it, and they will give it like a token recognition, but their aim is to prevent it from being implemented. وَعَزَلُوهُ عَنِ التَّصَرُّفِ وَالْحُكْمِ وَالتَّنْفِيذِ. Right, so these are different ways in which people, and we can apply this to the people of disbelief, right? They will either want to crush the truth and erase it completely, no one's going to see it, it's gone. Or if they can't do that, and the people who convey it, they will then fight them to repel it, so it doesn't come onto the path of the people, so they encounter it. And if they can't do that, then what they will do is they will try to restrain it as much as possible. And if they can't do that, and it's there, they will speak with it, but in a way to kind of stop the people from actually. It's just token like speech. It's not like they will stop people from acting upon it and understanding the necessity of what it requires from them and from them as well. So, in other words, what's happening here? What's happening here is that we are looking at the hearts of the people who reject the truth because of corruption in intent, in the qasd. And because these people have a qasd, they have ghayat, they intend things other than the truth, other than servitude to Allah, and these things are things of the world. And these people could be the polytheists, the mushrikeen, right? They could be the sinners who follow the shahawat. They could be the people who seek riyasa. They could be the people who seek standing and fame. When the truth comes, what do? They take these different steps because of the corruption in qasd. By necessity, they have to repel the truth. And they do it in stages, whatever they're able to do. The first one, crush it, demolish it, out of sight, out of mind, gone. They'll try and do that. And if they can't, then they'll take the other lesser steps. So then he goes on to say, and he gives an example. He says, وَإِنْ جَاءَ الْحَقِّ نَاصِرًا لَهُمْ وَكَانَ لَهُمْ سَالُوا بِهِ وَجَالُوا وَأَتَوْا إِلَيْهِ مُذْعِنِينَ لَا لِأَنَّهُ حَقٌّ بل لموافقته غرضهم وأهواءهم وانتصارهم به. Right, so now he says, these same people, if the truth comes and it just happens to aid their cause, so if there is truth and it happens to aid their cause and it is in their favor, then they will jump and leap for this truth, right? Because they will submit to it, not because it's the truth. They didn't come to it because it's the truth. It's because it agrees with their objectives and their desires and it aids them. And there's an example in the Quran, there's an ayah in the Quran in which Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions this reality. He says, وَإِذَا دُعُوا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَهُمْ إِذَا فَرِيقٌ مِّنْهُمْ مُعْرِضُونَ. Right? So when these people are invited to Allah and His Messenger, that He may judge between them, then you see a people among them who turn away. So they're not interested in the truth. They don't want to know the truth. They don't want to know the hukm of Allah and His Messenger, and they don't want to accept the religion, and they don't want to. But وَإِن يَكُنْ لَهُمْ الْحَقِّ يَأْتُوا إِلَيْهِ مُذْعِنِينَ. But if they have a right, meaning that if the ahkam of the sharia give them a right which is due to them and they see it, now they will come rushing to the Messenger of Allah and they will want their right and they will come in submission, not because it's the truth from Allah, but it is because the ghaya, the objective, the end that they want is being fulfilled by a hukm from the ahkam of the sharia. This is why they are coming, right? So can you see, this now is fasadul qasd. It is corruption in intent. They have a ghaya, and so in everything they are doing, even though the right is theirs, the intent is corrupt all the way through, right? In the ghaya and even in the wasa'il. The wasa'il in this case is what? Let's go to the Messenger of Allah. Let's go to him. We submit to the hukm. We accept. Why? Because it's in your favor, right? And your qasd here is corrupt. It's not because you are submitting. It's because it is corrupt. So the corruption in the ghaya and the corruption in the wasila together. Then Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he goes on to say, wal maqsood. So what is the intent here? Wal maqsood. He says here, وَالْمَقْصُودُ أَنَّ قَصْدَ هَؤُلَاءِ فَاسِدٌ فِي غَايَاتِهِمْ وَوَسَائِلِهِمْ. So the point being is that these people, they have corruption in their ghayat, in their ends, and in their means. وَهَؤُلَاءِ إِذَا بَطَلَتِ الْغَايَاتِ الَّتِي طَلَبُوهَا وَاضْمَحَلَّتْ وَفَنِيَتْ حَصَلُوا عَلَى أَعْظَمِ الْخُسْرَانِ وَالْحَسَرَاتِ. So these types of people in the life of this world, the people of disbelief, who have this corruption, when these ghayat which they were seeking, whatever that might be, when they come to an end, when they are falsified and invalidated, when they disappear, right? At that moment, they will have the greatest type of loss, ruin, and regret. Right? And this regret, he says, وَهُمْ أَعْظَمُ النَّاسِ نَدَامَةً وَتَحَسُّرًا إِذَا حَقَّ الْحَقِّ وَبَطَلَ الْبَاطِلِ. So meaning that eventually, and this can happen in the life of this world, to many people, in the life of this world, and in the hereafter, and in the barzakh, there are moments when people realize that everything I was seeking, it is batil, it is false, it is, I've lost it, I'm ruined, I'm this, and then at that point they have this feeling of great regret and this grief and this, because the truth has been established and the falsehood has been invalidated. So he says, وَتَقَطَّعَتْ بِهِمْ أَسْبَابُ الْوَصَلِ الَّتِي كَانَتْ بَيْنَهُمْ. So even these people who are all together in these ghayat, the ends, and the corrupt wasa'il, with corrupt intentions, even among themselves, all of the means of connections between them, they will be cut off as well. Meaning that they will, these ties will not persist because they were not ties of iman and taqwa and tawheed and so on and so forth, but they were upon this corruption, these corrupt goals and ends and objectives that they were all seeking. So then he says, وَتَيَقَّنُوا إِنْكِتَاءَهُمْ أَنَّ رَكْبِ الْفَلَاحِ وَالسَّعَادَةِ. So now they will realize that what they were seeking was false and it's all disappeared and vanished. Now they have no hope and of ever being happy and reaching success. Right? He says, وَهَذَا يَظْهُرُ كَثِيرًا فِي الدُّنْيَا. This often you see it among certain people in the life of the world, but even greater than that, it happens at close to the point of death. This happens even stronger when a person is departing and reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيَشْتَدُّ ظُهُورُهُ وَتَحَقُّقُهُ فِي الْبَرْزَخِ. When a person enters the grave, then it becomes even stronger. Meaning these people who die, they had ghayat, they had wasa'il to reach those ghayat. It was all upon fasadul qasd. And at the end of it, when they've realized that, when they've died and whatever, it's all perished, gone, and it's disappeared and vanished, now they have the greatest type of regret. And it gets worse and worse the later it is delayed. So at the point of, sometimes it can happen in your life, then it happens at the point of death, then it can be in the barzakh, it gets even stronger, and then وَيَنْكَشِفُ كُلَّ الْإِنْكِشَافِ يَوْمَ اللِّقَاءِ. And then it becomes even, the true reality becomes even greater on the Day of Judgment when everything is revealed. إِذَا حَقَّتِ الْحَقَائِقِ وَفَازَ الْمُحِقُّونَ وَخَسِرَ الْمُبْطِلُونَ وَعَلِمُوا أَنَّهُمْ كَانُوا كَاذِبِينَ. Right? So when the realities are established and those who are truthful, they are successful, and those who are falsifiers, they will lose, and they will then know that they used to be liars. They were lying. Meaning they were lying in their intent, in their qasd, because it wasn't for the haqq. And then they will realize that everything they'd done was a lie. They were living a lie. They were lying. The qasd was a lie. Everything was a lie. وَكَانُوا مَخْدُوعِينَ مَغْرُورِينَ. Then they will realize that we were deceived by the world. And we were deceived. فَيَا لَهُ هُنَاكَ مِنْ عِلْمٍ لَا يَنْفَعْ عَلِمَهُ وَيَقِينٍ لَا يُنْجِي مُسْتَيْقِنَهُ. So he says, what benefit will there be now then? What point now is that? What will knowledge benefit you now? And what will the certainty you have now, the yaqeen, how will that benefit you now? You can have the, absolute certainty now, but it's not going to benefit you. So the point being, after all this, this is the nature of these people, right? To have fasadul qasd, which is a disease from the diseases of the heart, and from it comes all other diseases, right? So we said other things like al-hasad, we have al-shuh, we have al-bukhl, we have, al-gham, we have all these things, so that these people, when they have anxiety and grief, right, it's because you are seeking something false in the life of the world. And a believer doesn't, a believer can have anxiety and grief in things where it is justified. A person dies, you are sad, you shed some tears, these things are fine. But here, it's when it becomes an actual disease. This is a disease now, which is not healthy for the heart. So these types of people who have fasadul qasd, right, and the wasa'il they are seeking in between to the ghaya, this now gives birth to all of these diseases that we mentioned earlier on, right? Al-hasad, al-shahwa, al-ishq, al-gham, al-ghayth, al-hazan, al-bukhl, al-shuh, al-hawa, al-jahl, and others, right? These emanate out of the heart, which has fasadul qasd. It has a corrupt intent, and likewise from corrupt knowledge. Now he goes on to say, continuing, وَكَذَلِكَ مَنْ طَلَبَ الْغَايَةَ الْعُلْيَا وَالْمَطَالِبَ الْأَعْلَى وَلَكِنْ لَمْ يَتَوَسَّلْ إِلَيْهِ بِالْوَسِيلَةِ الْمُوصِلَةِ لَهُ إِلَيْهِ. Okay, now we're moving to a different category of people, right? So the first category is people who have fasadul qasd, and the end goal is corrupt, and the means are corrupt as well, right? But here there's another category. He says, likewise the one who sought the lofty ends, the highest pursuits, meaning now this is someone who seeks Allah, seeks his tawheed, his ubudiyah, he seeks, so he's on the right ghaya. He's on the right ghaya. Likewise in the life of this world, he seeks good for the people, he seeks all the right things. So here the qasd is good. But then he says, وَلَكِنْ لَمْ يَتَوَسَّلْ إِلَيْهِ بِالْوَسِيلَةِ الْمُوسِلَةِ لَهُ إِلَيْهِ. However, the means he is taking now, he's not taking the right means. Rather, بَلْ تَوَسَّلَ إِلَيْهِ بِوَسِيلَةٍ ظَنَّهَا مُوسِلَةً إِلَيْهِ وَهِيَ مِنْ أَعْظَمِ الْقَوَاطِعِ عَنْهُ. So this now is when a person, he takes means towards that lofty end, but he thinks it will make him reach there, but it is the greatest of barriers and impediments for him reaching that thing. Right? فحاله أيضا كحال هذا وكلاهما فاسد القصد. Right? So really, both of these types of people, that one we discussed before, and this one, they end up really ending up in the same position, because it's corruption in intent. The qasd in this one, he's seeking the wrong wasa'il. So this, like to give an example of this, just to show that someone could be, this would be the people of innovation, for example, Ahlul Bid'ah wad Dalal. They seek Allah, they seek the hereafter, and they take wasa'il that they think, like a Sufi sitting in a room, switching the light off and breathing and intoxicating himself and thinking he's in divine union with Allah. He thinks he's reached Allah, but he is the furthest away from Allah. He's not in divine union. Rather, he is in like a satanic union with the shayateen, because the jinn come to them. So the point being here that the qasd has to be good for the ghaya. It has to be good for the wasila. The wasila has to be correct as well. Otherwise, you will still not reach the goal. You will still not reach the goal, and you will end up far, far, far astray. So what is the cure for fasadul qasd? We already said before, ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim is the cure for fasadul ilm, for jahl and for dalal. And the cure for fasadul qasd is iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. Right? How and why is this a cure for fasadul qasd? He explains, he says that this, فَإِنَّ هَذَا الدَّوَاء, this treatment, this medicine, مُرَكَّبٌ مِنْ سِتَّةِ أَجْزَاء. Because this medicine here, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, which is a medicine, there are 6 components in this medicine for the heart. 6 components. They are in sets of 3 sets of 2. Right? He says that first of all, ubudiyatullah la ghayrihi min sitt ubudiyatillah la ghayrihi. Right? So the first component is ubudiyah to Allah. There is servitude to Allah. That meaning you are serving Allah, you are enslaving yourself only to Allah. This is ikhlas, this is all the ibadah for Allah. La ghayrihi. Right? So it's got to be for Allah and not to any other. So these are 2 components. Ubudiyah for Allah and nothing for anyone besides Him. بأمره وشرعه لا بالهوى ولا بآراء الرجال وأوضاعهم ورسومهم وأفكارهم. So the second component now is it has to be with His command and with His legislation. Right? So the ubudiyah has to be with His command and legislation, not by what you feel, your desires, not by the opinions of men, not by their customs and traditions, and nor their thoughts and their ideas. Right? That's the third and the fourth. The third and the fourth. The Sharia, His legislation, His command, and abandoning the ara of the rijal and the rusum and everything else, customs, thoughts, ideas, habits, traditions, intellects, opinions, and so on and so forth. And the last set of 2 is isti'anatun wasti'anatun ala ubudiyatihi bihi la bi nafsil abd wa quwwatihi wa hawlihi wa la bi ghayrihi. And the third part has to be that you are seeking aid from Allah in worshipping Him, and not that you feel sufficient on your own, that yourself, that you are, just because you've got power and you've got ability and, so you don't seek it from yourself and no other than yourself. You are making isti'ana only from Allah and not from anybody else. So, in other words, the ghaya, we have the ghayat and we have the wasa'il, and for that we have to have the good qasd, right? And the thing that treats the corrupt qasd is إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. The servant who remains within all of this, these things that I mentioned here, within what this ayah wants from you, the three things as opposed to the three other things, ubudiyah to Allah, through His amr and through His shara', and making isti'ana with Allah. You do these three things and you keep away from everything else, meaning that you don't enslave, you don't make your heart attached to other things besides Allah, wealth, status, position, fame, so on and so forth, and you do not follow the opinions of men and their ideas and their rusum, their habits and customs, and you are seeking, and you don't rely upon other people, right? You are seeking it only from Allah. These 6 components, when you put them all together, it will make sure that your qasd, your whatever you are, the objective you are seeking and the wasa'il, that it will remain healthy and you will not have this disease. So he says, فَهَذِهِ هِيَ أَجْزَاء إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Right? So these are the components of the medicine here, which is إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Then he says, فَإِذَا رَكَّبَهَا الطَّبِيبُ الْعَالِمُ بِالْمَرَضِ وَاسْتَعْمَلَهَا الْمَرِيض حَصَلَ بِهَا الشِّفَاء التَّامُ وَمَا نَقَصَ مِنَ الشِّفَاء فَهُوَ لفوات جزء من أجزائها أو اثنين أو أكثر. He says, now when there is a physician, a knowledgeable physician who knows the disease, and so he formulates the medicine, he combines the medicine, then he gives it to the sick person. The sick person then uses this medicine, then he will receive a complete and perfect cure. Right? So in other words here, this is a medicine, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. All the components have been put in this, this ayah, right? And the tabibul alim, the one who knows the disease of individuals, meaning the diseases of the heart, then he gives them, he gives it to the ill person, and this person will receive a complete cure. And if there is any absence of cure, or it is not a full cure, what's the reason? Is because one of these 6 things is missing. Right? So if you are finding, like in yourself, that you are having issues with your heart, and you don't feel right, and you have anxiety and grief, and there's miserliness, or there's covetousness, or there's all those diseases, and you find that your heart is afflicted, well, there's something missing from these 6 things. You're not doing something right. It's not perfect ubudiyah to Allah, complete attachment to Allah. Maybe you're attached to something else still. Maybe the amr and the shara', maybe you're not making sure that your actions are acceptable to Allah by following the sunnah exactly, and you're doing something wrong. Or maybe you have the isti'ana, you're not making complete, total, seeking aid and reliant upon Allah, and you have attachments. So there's something that's there that's not right, which is making the cure not come to you. Right? Again, we are speaking here the cure for the diseases of the heart. So then he goes on after this, right? So we've spoke about fasadul ilm at the beginning. The cure for that is ihdina siratal mustaqim. And then you follow the wasa'il to remove that jahl and shak and things like that. Then we said fasadul qasd. The cure for that is إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And there's different types of people. There are those who have ghayat and wasa'il in which the ghaya is corrupt and the wasa'il are corrupt. So you have a corrupt intention in both things, right? So we gave examples, the people of disbelief who seek the dunya, and sinful people, and so on and so forth. And so the cure for that is إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And we see that the people who have corrupt intent, they will be the most remorseful in this life and in the barzakh and in the hereafter because they knew they were living a lie, right? They were pursuing a lie. Many of the people of disbelief, you see them, what is their life? What are you pursuing? What are you after? Wealth, riches, things. And then even deep inside themselves, they know that they are suffering from the diseases of the heart, diseases of grief, anxiety. They don't feel content. They feel jealous of other people. How can I do one better than that one and this one? They're just plagued with all of these diseases. They come with corruption in intent. And so when these people, everything vanishes from them, or they reach death, or they're in the barzakh or the hereafter, they will have the greatest type of remorse and regret, and they will know that they were living, as Ibn al-Qayyim said, أَنَّهُ عَلِمُوا أَنَّهُمْ كَانُوا كَاذِبِينَ وَكَانُوا مَخْدُوعِينَ مَغْرُورِينَ. Then they will realize that everything was just a total deception. Where did it stem from? A corrupt intent. Right? Fasadul qasd. This is where it started from. And then with that fasadul qasd, all those, so the ghayat were wrong, the wasa'il were wrong, all these diseases of the heart came and entered you, that prevented you from the truth, from accepting the truth. So this shows that we have to cut off things from the very beginning, from their roots, from the very beginning. So then he goes on, so we've covered that, now he goes on to say that the heart can sometimes be subjected to another two diseases, right? So al-jahl, al-dalal is a disease, fasadul qasd, corruption of the intent is a disease, but there's also some other diseases. He says, ثُمَّ إِنَّ الْقَلْبِ يَعْرِضُ لَهُ مَرَضًا عَظِيمًا. Then also, the heart can be subjected to two mighty diseases. Now we have another two diseases on top of jahl and the fasadul qasd. He said, fasadul ilm, fasadul qasd. إن لم يتداركهما تراميا به إلى التلف ولا بد. If this person does not basically restrain them and be careful, be on guard with respect to them, they will lead him towards ruin and destruction without fail. Without fail. What are these two diseases? What are they? وَهُمَا الرِّيَاء وَالْكِبْرِ. Ar-riya wal-kibr. Two mighty diseases. Ar-riya, showing off, seeking to be seen, to be heard. Wal-kibr, which is arrogance. How is Al-Fatiha a cure for these two diseases as well? Right? So we've seen Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim is a healing, is a cure for jahl, fasadul ilm. We've seen Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in is a cure for fasadul qasd and the 6 components. How is Al-Fatiha a cure for these additional two mighty diseases? He says in the same ayah, he says, فَدَوَاء الرِّيَاء بِإِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدْ. So when you say إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدْ, you're saying that you alone do we worship. So this means ikhlas, means sincerity. It means that you are only you lose sight of everything else and everybody else. There is nothing in your mind or anybody else that when you do a deed, you do it purely for the sake of Allah. You lose sight of everything else and everyone else. This is the cure for ar-riya. And وَدَوَاءُ الْكِبْرِ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, which is that you alone do we, from you alone do we seek aid. Meaning that you, in your own capabilities, that there's no reason for you to be proud and arrogant and feel that you have the means, that you've achieved things, and even in your ibadah and your deen and your iman, you don't think, mashallah, look at how strong my iman is, and think that somehow it's because of you. No. The moment you start feeling that, this now is this is the disease of kibr. And so iyaka nasta'in, it humbles you, it debases you, it brings you down, because you realize who is the real one, who is the one from whom you seek aid. Ibn al-Qayyim says, وَكَثِيرًا مَا كُنْتُ أَسْمَعْ شيخ الإسلام Ibn Taymiyyah رحمه الله قدس الله روحه يقول. So this is something Ibn al-Qayyim would frequently hear Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, his teacher, repeat often. He would say, بِإِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدْ تَدْفَعُ الرِّيَاء وَبِإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ تَدْفَعُ الْكِبْرِيَاء. He would repeat this often, right? His students would hear this from him. He would say, with إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدْ, do you repel ar-riya? And with إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, from you alone do we seek aid, do you repel kibriya? Do you repel like the haughtiness, the feeling of importance and greatness? فَإِذَا عُوفِيَ مِنْ مَرَضِ الرِّيَاءِ بِإِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدْ وَمِنْ مَرَضِ الْكِبْرِيَاءِ وَالْعُجْبِ بِإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ وَمِنْ مَرَضِ الضَّلَالِ وَالْجَهْلِ بِإِهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ عُوفِيَ مِنْ أَمْرَاضِهِ وَأَسْقَامِهِ ورفل في أثواب العافية وتمت عليه النعمة وكان من المنعم عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. So he says here, so when a person, he is cured of the disease of riya with إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدْ, and the disease of kibriya, which is haughtiness, arrogance, pride, wal-ujub, and amazement, with إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, and with the disease of ad-dalal wal-jahl, which is misguidance and ignorance, with ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. So let's stop and think here. Look at all of the diseases of the heart which are being treated by these two verses, right? So we said there is al-jahl and dalal, which is fasadul ilm. We said there is fasadul qasd, from which spring so many other diseases of the heart. Then we have ar-riya, and then we have al-kibriya. All of them are being treated just by these two verses. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, and before that, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدْ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. So when a person uses this, so again, this is why that as we now recite Al-Fatiha, we have to try to be able to layer all the meanings, because in each ayah there's so many things. In each verse there's different things. There's layers of meaning stacked on top. And so somehow we have to be able to bring these meanings to mind as we are reciting slowly, and to use the mind to bring it to mind, because that's how you get the actual benefit and the cure. It doesn't come just by reciting by itself. It's from the ma'na, it's from the ma'ani. This is what is giving you the cure, right? And we'll see that in the next section very, very clearly. So he goes on to say, so the one who treats himself in this manner from all these diseases by these two verses, he will be relieved and cured from all of his diseases, all of his illnesses. He will happily, he will strut, meaning he will happily enjoy the reward of having a clean, healthy heart, free of all these diseases, of afiyah. And the bounty, the favor will be completed upon him. And he will be of those upon whom is Allah's favor, not of those upon whom is Allah's anger. Who are they? Hum ahlu fasadil qasd. Right? They are the people of corrupt intention. الَّذِينَ عَرَفُوا الْحَقِّ وَعَدَلُوا عَنْهُ. Those who knew the truth and they turned away from it. وَالضَّالِينَ وَهُمْ أَهْلُ فَسَادِ الْعِلْمِ. And likewise he will not be from the dhalin, the astray. They are the people of corruption in knowledge. الَّذِينَ جَهِلُوا الْحَقِّ وَلَمْ يَعْرِفُوهُ. Those who were ignorant of the truth and did not know the truth. Okay, so now all of this, it really brings us to the end of the part which relates to the shifa'ul qulub. Right? This is the first type of healing which is comprised in Al-Fatiha. It treats the foundations of all of the diseases of the heart. Right? It is fasadul ilm, fasadul qasd. Every disease of the heart that you can think of, like we mentioned many of them, right? They emanate from these things, and we could go into each one. We said, for example, al-gham, for example, why does this overwhelm the heart? Well, it's because of fasad fil ilm, right? Fasadul ilm. That you should have knowledge of Allah's decrees. You should have conviction in the decrees of Allah, that whatever was going to come to you was never going to miss you, whatever missed you was never going to come to you, that in every affair of the believer there is good, whether it's something likable, something dislikable, right? You have to have conviction in all of these things in this ilm for you to be able to handle the calamities and difficulties that come to you, so you can process them and understand them through your iman. and through your yaqeen, and through your knowledge of Tawheed, Allah's names, Al-Qadr, and so on and so forth. So you can process it in your mind, and the gham does not settle in your heart. Right? Why are people overtaken by grief and anxiety and the type that is not healthy? It is because fasad fil ilm. Right? And so we could go through each one and explain how in each one, al-jahl, hawa, shuh, bukhul, hasad, shahwa, ishq, gham, ghayr, hazan, and so on and so forth, shaq, all those different things. But now you have the basic principle, right? You know that it goes back to either fasad fil ilm or it is fasad fil qasd. So you yourself can go back and you can think about each of these things and think, well, how is there corruption in knowledge in, for example, al-ghayr, al-hazan, al-shahwa, right? You have the means to now go back and to do that on yourself. But coming back, so all of this was to do with the disease of the heart. Now he's going to move into the body, right? How Al-Fatiha is a cure for the body. And so this is like the amazing part here, the way that Ibn al-Qayyim presents it. So he says here, وَحُقَّ لسورة تشتمل على هذين الشفائين أن يستشفى بها من كل مرض. So he's saying here that it is worthy that such a surah, such a chapter, which comprises both these two types of cure, meaning the cure for the hearts and the cure for the bodies. Right, because Al-Fatiha, as we said in the title, it is shifa for the qulub, it is shifa for the abdan. Because the surah is like this, then it is worthy that a person seeks through it a cure. He treats himself from every disease, right? Not just the disease of the heart, but also the disease of the body as well. Al-Fatiha is a cure for every disease of the body, just as it is a cure for every disease of the heart. Why? Because it treats the roots. What are the roots? Jahl and corruption in intent and riya and kibriya. It treats the roots, right? And it stops everything else. It stops all of the diseases coming and consuming and killing the heart. In the same way, he says that وَلِهَذَا لَمَا اشْتَمَلَتْ عَلَى هَذَا الشِّفَاء الَّذِي هُوَ أَعْظَمُ الشِّفَائِينَ. So basically, given that Al-Fatiha has the cure for the heart, which is the greatest of the cures, then كان حصول الشفاء الأدنى بها أولى. Think about what he's saying here. He's saying that given that Al-Fatiha is a cure, it is the greatest cure for the greatest of two things, which is the heart, because the heart's the king of the body, right? So if Al-Fatiha is going to cure the heart, which is the greatest of the cures, how then can it not be a cure for the thing which is the lesser of the two? What's the lesser of the two? It's the body, right? Because the heart comes first, and then the body is less. So he's saying, if Al-Fatiha is a cure for the greatest of the two things, then the greater cure, how then can it not cure the lesser of the two things? Meaning that it is a treatment and a cure for the diseases of the body as well. So he says, كَانَ حُصُولُ الشِّفَاء الْأَدْنَى بِهَا أَوْلَى, meaning that a person being cured of his bodily illness by way of Al-Fatiha is even more so it should be the case. So he says, فَلَا شَيْءٌ أَشْفَى لِلْقُلُوبِ الَّتِي عَقَلَتْ عَنِ اللَّهِ كَلَامَهُ وَفَهِمَتْ عَنْهُ فَهْمًا خَاصًا اختصها به من معاني هذه السورة. Right? So he's saying that there's nothing more healing to the hearts which understand Allah's speech from Him and who grasp and comprehend with a specific type of fahm. Meaning that the cure is for the one who grasps and understands these things. Right? This is who the cure is for. Now he goes on to mention like the body part. Right? So he says, وَأَمَّا تَدَمُّنُهَا لِشِفَاءِ الْأَبْدَانِ. As for it being a cure for the abdan, فَنَذْكُرُ مِنْهُ مَا جَاءَتْ بِهِ السُّنَّةِ وَمَا شَهِدَتْ بِهِ قَوَائِدُ الطِّبِّ وَدُلَّتْ عَلَيْهِ التَّجْرِبَةِ. So he says here, as for Al-Fatiha comprising the healing of the bodies, then we shall mention of them just an example of that, what has come in the Sunnah, and also what is attested to by the principles of medicine, and what is indicated by experience. So in front of us now, there are three things to be discussed. The first thing, from the Sunnah. We're going to illustrate from the Sunnah to show how Al-Fatiha is a cure for the bodies. The second thing is we're going to explain how there are principles of medicine that are known to the physicians. We are going to show through these principles of medicine how Al-Fatiha is a cure for bodily ailments. And then thirdly, we are going to illustrate by way of personal experience as well. So meaning Ibn al-Qayyim is going to illustrate to us in three ways. Three ways as to how Al-Fatiha comprises the healing for the bodies. So he begins by saying that فَأَمَّا مَا دَلَّتْ عَلَيْهِ السُّنَّةُ ففي الصحيح من حديث أبي المتوكل عن أبي سعيد الخدري أن ناسا من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مروا بحي من العرب فلم يقروهم ولم يضيفوهم. So the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they passed by a region and of the Arab, of the Bedouins, and they did not entertain them. Right, so they didn't host them, they didn't look after them, because we know it's the custom for them to do that normally. So they didn't do that, and they didn't host them. فَلُدِغَ سَيِّدُ الْحَيِّ. Now the chief, the leader, the chief, he was stung by by something, by a scorpion or something like that. فَأَتَوْهُمْ فَقَالُوا هَلْ عِنْدَكُمْ مِنْ رُقْيَةٍ. So then they came to the companion and said, do you have a ruqyah? So, أَوْ هَلْ فِيكُم مِّن رَاقٍ. Or is there anyone among you who can do the incantation? Remember, these are people of disbelief. They are mushrikeen. They're not Muslim, right? So, فَقَالُوا نَعَمْ وَلَكِنَّكُمْ لَمْ تَقْرُونَا فَلَا نَفْعَلْ حَتَّى تَجْعَلُوا لَنَا جُعْلًا. So they said, well, yes, but you did not entertain us. You didn't host us. So we are not going to do anything until you give us a price, until you give us something. So فَجَعَلُوا لَهُمْ عَلَى ذَلِكَ قَطِيعًا مِنَ الْغَنَمِ. So they said, okay, we will give you a flock of sheep. You can have a flock of sheep. We want you to come and to treat our chief. فَجَعَلَ رَجُلٌ مِنَّا يَقْرَأُ عَلَيْهِ بِفَاتِحَةِ الْكِتَابِ. And in the version of Al-Bukhari, وَجَعَلَ بُزَاقَهُ وَيَدْفِلْ. Right? So meaning he's reciting Al-Fatiha. He's using his spittle, like the saliva, and he's like splitting slightly. And so he treated him like that. فَقَامَ كَأَلَّمْ يَكُنْ بِهِ قَلَبَهُ. Then the man, like there and then, the man got up as if he had no ache or pain. So it's a sting. A sting is, especially, you know what a bee sting is like. It's very painful, and other things have even more powerful stings. The ache, the pain went from him, and he stood up immediately. فَقُلْنَا لَا تَعْجِلُوا. He said, لَا تَعْجِلُوا حَتَّى نَأْتِي النَّبِيِّ صلى الله عليه وسلم فَأَتَيْنَاهُ فَذَكَرْنَا لَهُ ذَلِكَ. So they said, okay, we're not going to take anything. Let us go to the Prophet ﷺ, and he will come back to you. So they came to the Prophet ﷺ, and they said to him, they mentioned what happened. So he said, مَا يُدْرِيكَ أَنَّهَا رُقْيَةٌ. So he said, how did you know that Al-Fatiha is a ruqyah? How did you know? كُلُوا, meaning eat from that. وَاضْرِبُوا لِي مَأَكُمْ بِسَحْمٍ. Eat from it and leave for me a portion from it as well. Okay. So now, although there are many, many benefits from this hadith, clearly you can see Al-Fatiha is a cure for a physical ailment and a pain, right? So we can see that clearly from the hadith. Ibn al-Qayyim says, فَقَدْ تَضَمَّنَ هَذَا الْحَدِيث حُصُولِ شِفَاء هَذَا الَّذِيغ بقراءة الفاتحة عليه فأغنته عن الدواء. He says, this hadith comprises, it tells us that cure was obtained for this one who was stung just by the recitation of Al-Fatiha, making him not in need of any medicine, any physical medicine. And he said, perhaps his cure was reached in such a way that even the physical medicine would not have been able to cure him, right? By Al-Fatiha. He says, هذا مع كون المحل غير قابل إما لكون هؤلاء الحي غير مسلمين أو أهل بخل ولؤم فكيف إذا كان المحل قابلا. This is important, this part now. Like, he's saying that look at how Al-Fatiha was able to cure this physical thing with the pain in a way that even an actual physical medicine by a physician would not have been able to cure. Not only that, but the fact that this person, like the mahal, because what happens is that there's the cure and there's the mahal, right? The cure is the medicine and there is the thing that is receiving the medicine. The thing has to be receptive to the medicine for the cure to be attained. But in this case, even the mahal, which is this pagan, kafir, mushrik leader, right? Like, if you look at, first of all, he's a mushrik kafir, no iman. He doesn't even believe in the Quran or Al-Fatiha in the first place. Number two, that these people were people of bukhl, meaning they didn't have like generous hearts to be even hosting these companions and to treat them as they should do, right? So it means that there's a disease of the heart. See, there's a disease of the heart in them, right? So given all of these factors, where it should normally be like not even possible to cure this person, is a mushrik kafir, heart is unclean, right? There were people of bukhl, diseases in their hearts. Even the physical medicine might not even been able to cure the sting. But here, despite all factors to the contrary, Al-Fatiha cured this man in an instant. And he stood up as if there was nothing with him. Right, so this is now the hadith, right? This is the hadith. The hadith, what's the hadith proved? It's proven that Al-Fatiha is a cure for bodily ailments. But now, how do we understand this through the principles of medicine? Right? How do you understand? Now Ibn al-Qayyim is going to explain through the qawaid of tibb to show how this is the case. So he says, وَأَمَّا شَهَادَتُهُ أَمَّا شَهَادَةُ قواعد الطب بذلك. So he says, okay, how does the principles of medicine testify to this? How can it explain what happened here? How did this happen? Al-Fatiha, something you recite, curing a physical, ailment. He says, فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّدْغَ تَكُونُ مِنْ ذَوَاتِ الْحُمَاتِ وَالسُّمُومِ. Right? So in this instance, the ladgha, the bite or the sting, it comes from animals or beings which have stings and poisons, right? So animals, you have a snake, you have a bee, you have a scorpion, you have various types of, even plants have like, spikes, and you can, some of them are very dangerous, right? Nettles, things like that. So these things هي ذوات الأنفس الخبيثة التي تتكيف بكيفية غضبية. Now, I'm reading here the shortened version. If you go back to the original, here, there's a bit missing where he's speaking about the evil eye, right? Because the evil eye is similar to the sting as well, right? So you have a sting from animals. These animals, they have like a snake. Inwardly, it's like there's some khubth and anger and like vileness, right? And that's why the sting is powerful and dangerous. So there are certain animals that are like that, right? The anger, out of anger, like the bee stings you because you're bothering it. The snake stings you, like the scorpion stings you. And from it, certain creatures have like this, this nariya ghadabi, they have this like fiery rage and anger, and that now becomes embodied in the sting and the poison that it puts in you. But in exactly the same way, the evil eye is the same thing. So he says, if you go back to the original, there's a whole section paragraph which I don't have time to read, but he's explaining that with the evil eye, the same thing happens. There are certain people, they are evil people, they have, like he says here, there are certain people that it's their nature that they have khubth, and they cannot rest unless they go and they harm people. Right? Some people have this ghadab. They need to go and harm people, oppress people, because it's in their hearts and they can't rest. Other people have shahwa. It's in their hearts. They have to go and they have to, fulfill their desires in any which way possible. Like it's the khubth that's in there, right? And then likewise with the evil eye, there are some people who have this like filth inside of envy, and so he's going to describe in the next section. He's going to describe what happens and how a person is stricken, by these poisons, whether they are physical, in the case of animals with a sting, or even with the evil eye, where it involves people and the khubth that comes from them. So he says, فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّدْغَ تَكُونُ مِنْ ذَوَاتِ الْحُمَاةِ وَالسَّمُومِ وَهِيَ ذَوَاتِ الْأَنفُسِ الْخَبِيثَةِ الَّتِي تَتَكَيَّفْ بِكَيْفِيَّةٍ غَضَبِيَّةٍ. Right? So these poisons that come to you, they come from creatures which have like an element of anger. And they within that animal, like there's a poison that gets activated and stimulated. It is fiery, it is raging, it is poison. So then when he says, so when there's a sting, so in the case of this a pagan chief, he got stung from an animal where there is like a ghadab, like there's a summiya nariya, there's like a raging poison which emanates from anger, right? So this is the disease. So now when you face this disease with the opposite, فَإِذَا قَابَلَتْ النَّفْسُ الزَّاكِيَةِ الْعُلْوِيَّةِ الشَّرِيفَةِ الَّتِي فِيهَا غَضَبٌ وَهَمِيَّةٌ لِلْحَقِّ. Right? So now there comes a person who likewise has anger. So this is now the person with the Fatiha. He comes to the person with the sting, or he comes with the person with the evil eye, he comes with the person with whatever it might be. Within him is anger. There's ghadab, just like there's ghadab that came from the scorpion, the snake, and from the evil eye. So he now has ghadab. But what is this ghadab? This ghadab is out of jealousy for the truth. And it is, in fact, it's more here. If I go back to the original, it's more clearer. He says, فَإِذَا قَابَلَتْ النَّفْسَ الزَّكِيَّةِ الْعُلْوِيَّةِ الشَّرِيفَةِ الَّتِي فِيهَا غَضَبٌ وَحَمِيَّةٌ لِلْحَقِّ. So when it comes and now it stands in the face of these nufus al-khabitha as-sumiyya, these poisonous souls, right, which is men or animals or stings, from which these diseases of they emanate of anger and things like that, and they come out and they affect a person. He says, وَتَكَيَّفَتْ بِحَقَائِكِ الْفَاتِحَةِ وَأَسْرَارِهَا وَمَعَانِيهَا وما تضمنته من التوحيد والتوكل والثناء على الله وذكر أصول أسماء الحسنى وذكر اسمه الذي ما ذكر على شر إلا أزاله ومحقه ولا على خير إلا نماه وزاده. Right? So meaning that now when a person comes to someone who's been stung or someone who has the evil eye, where you see that poison has come from anger and rage, from khubth, then a person comes who is a person of tawheed, and in him is the rage and the anger for the truth, for tawheed, for iman, and there are all of he says, the ma'ani, the meanings, and the asrar, and the secrets of al-Fatiha, like what we've been discussing previously. You understand all of that, and you come to that, you come with that, and then you come to this person. And then he says, you mention all these things that you know that in there's the usul of Allah's names, there's rububiyyah, there's uluhiyyah, there's the cure for the heart, there is tawassul, there's, all the things that we mentioned previously, and all of that now you come and you are raging with anger for the sake of Allah, and you come and you bring that, and then you stand against the sting or the whatever it might be. He says, دفعت هذه النفس بما تكيفت به من ذلك. So because now this soul has the composition of all of these things, just like in the snake or the scorpion, the anger, right? It allowed the composition of the poison to come into that person. Right now, this one faces that one. It counters it, and it works against it. So he says, فَحَسَلَ الْبُرْء. Right? The cure will then be achieved. The cure will then be achieved. He says, فَإِنَّ مَبْنَ الشِّفَاء وَالْبُرْء عَلَى دَفْعِ الضِّدِّ بِضِدِّهِ وَحِفْظُ الشَّيْء بِمِثْلِهِ. This now are the principles of medicine. Right? So he's saying, the reason is because what is the foundation of cure? فَإِنَّ مَبْنَ الشِّفَاء وَالْبُرْء. It is to repel an opposite with its opposite. This is a principles, well-known principles in medicine, that you repel one opposite with the other opposite. So in this case, whether it is the evil eye, right? So what is the evil eye? Basically, think about it. Let's work through this process. Let's tie all this together. So let's take the evil eye as an example. Evil eye, there's marad in the heart, right? Someone has jealousy, envy, right? Shahwa. These are diseases of the heart. How do they emanate? They emanate from fasadul ilm, fasadul qasd. This person now, the khubth and the filth now, and obviously there's ways that the evil eye happens. Now, evil eye afflicts a person, right? So that ghadab, that hasad, that whatever, one way or another, it afflicts a person and it harms him. So now someone comes along, and in this person who is going to be the raqin, the reader, who's going to be the one with the cure, he likewise, he has the opposite of what was in that person who gave the evil eye, right? That was fasadul ilm, fasadul qasd, right? Here there is ilm and qasd sahih from al-Fatiha and all the knowledge and the meanings and the secrets of Tawheed, Rububiyyah, names and attributes, tawassul to Allah, all the other things, isti'ana, ubudiyyah, everything together, put together, is stacked all together, and there is this anger to, it all builds up, and then you attack the evil eye with that, right? So, according to the principle of medicine, which is a did is attacked and repelled by the did. So this is an opposite to that one, and by necessity it will repel it. Right? By necessity, it will do it. And likewise, he says, وَحِفْظُ الشَّيْءِ بِمِثْلِهِ. This is another principle of medicine, that you safeguard and protect something by its like. So he says, وَالْمَرَضْ يُدْفَعْ بِالضِّدِّ. Right? The disease is repelled by its opposite. And he says, as for as-siha tuhfadhu, fasiha tuhfadhu bil mithl. So health is preserved by its like. It's like for like. And disease is repelled with its opposite. These are principles of medicine. Now, so he's explained that, and then if we go back to the short version, he says here, وَلَا يَتِمُّ هَذَا إِلَّا بِقُوَّةٍ مِنَ النَّفْسِ الْفَائِلَةِ. Right? So the cure has to come from the strength of the person who is giving the cure, in this case the raqi, but also وَقَبُولْ مِنَ الطَّبِيعَةِ الْمُنْفَئِلَةِ. But it also has to be the willingness and the acceptance of that person. So in this case, that mushrik, he was anticipating and expecting the cure, right? That there has to be like an acceptance that the cure is going to happen. فَلَوْ لَمْ تَنْفَعِ النَّفْسٌ الْمَلْدُوغ لِقَبُولِ الرُّقْيَةِ وَلَمْ تَقْوِ نَفْسُ الرَّاقِي عَلَى التَّأْثِيرِ لَمْ يَحْصُلْ الْبُرْ. Right? So now there's another component. He's saying that if this person who was stung didn't have within him the anticipation and the expectation of being cured, alongside the strength of the raqi, right? So the strength of the raqi, what's he bringing? He's bringing the strength of al-Fatiha, right? The did against the poison or the evil eye. And he's bringing all the meanings of al-Fatiha. So that is there, but also there has to be there the anticipation and the expectation of the healing from the mahal, in this case, which is the mushrik and the polytheist. So when these things come together, then the cure will happen. Right, so now you have to stop and think here that look at how, like all the circumstances that we mentioned about this mushrik. This is a mushrik, doesn't believe, not a believer, no tawheed, no iman, there's no, so there's that first of all. Then there is the fact that these people were stingy and they didn't host the companions, so there's bukhl, so disease in the heart already. And despite all of that, Al-Fatiha, because of the strength of Al-Fatiha and the person reading it, and the qabul of the nafsul maldugh, right? The cure was immediate and effective there and then. Now, I want to take a slight diversion to stop right here, because there's something very important that we have to discuss here. It's something that the scholars of the Muslims, they speak about. And Ibn al-Qayyim said, at-tabi'a al-munfa'ila. Right? This is like the nature of a person where you are anticipating and expecting a cure. This is now to do with emotions and feelings and your expectations, because this has a tremendous, powerful effect on health and disease. Right? And I'm going to read something to you from a hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Ibn Abbas. It's hadith in al-Bukhari. And Prophet he used to visit the ill people. And when he would visit them, he would say, La ba'as tahur insha'Allah, as you know, right? La ba'as tahur insha'Allah. So he came upon a Bedouin, there was a Bedouin, and he was visiting him, and he said to him, La ba'as tahur insha'Allah. He said this to the Bedouin. But the Bedouin replied, he said, Qulta tahur. Tahur. You said it's purification. And he said, Kalla. He said, Bal hiya humma. He said, rather this is a fever, tafuru or tathuru ala shaykhin. This is a fever that is basically like it's harming and hurting a shaykh, a kabir, a shaykhin kabir. Tuziruhu al-qubur. And it is going to make him to visit the grave. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Idhan fana'am. Idhan fana'am. So the Bedouin, when the Messenger of Allah was saying to him to be optimistic, it's purification, inshallah, this is what it is, the fever. He said, purification? This is a fever, like a raging fever. It sends people to the graves. So the Messenger said to Rasulullah, Idhan fana'am. Okay. So now when we go back to the scholars of the Muslims and the scholars who, sharh upon this hadith, first of all from Ibn Rajab, rahimahullah, he says, يعني أنه لم يقبل الطهارة بل ردها وأخبر أن حماه بما أخبر به نفسه فحصل ما اختاره لنفسه. So he said, meaning that this man didn't really accept. He didn't accept like the Messenger of Allah saying, don't worry, it's purification, and he rejected this, and he said that this fever, is going to do to me what the fever is going to do to me. So what he chose for himself happened. What he chose for himself happened. And likewise, Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, he said about this hadith, تَقْدِيرُهُ إِذَا أَبَيْتَ فَنَعَمْ. So when the messenger said, إِذَا فَنَعَمْ, what he means is, إِذَا أَبَيْتَ. If you refuse, meaning if you refuse to accept, I'm telling you that, la ba'as tahur, inshallah, it will be purification for you and so forth, then فَنَعَمْ, then yes. كَانَ كَمَا ظَنَنْتَ. It will be as you expect or think it to be. Right? So this is one of the interpretations of this hadith. And likewise, when we go back to like Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, he says likewise, he says, وَالْإِنْفِعَالِ النَّفْسِ لَهُ أَثَرٌ كَبِيرٌ فِي إِدْعَافِ الْإِنسَانِ. Right? Like emotions have a great effect in weakening a person. فأحيانا يتوهم الصحيح أنه مريض فيمرض وأحيانا يتناسى الإنسان المرض وهو مريض فيصبح صحيحا فانفعال النفس بالشيء له أثر بالغ. He says emotions can have a great effect in weakening a person. Sometimes a person might just think that he's actually ill, but he's not actually ill, and he will make himself ill. He will make himself ill. And sometimes a person forgets even that he's even ill, or forgets illness, and he becomes healthy, like the disease just disappears by itself. So therefore the emotion for infi'al and nafs bishay has a mighty effect upon actual health and actual illness, right? So here in this case what's happened is this man, like he's not anticipating the cure, he's not and he's just thinking that it's going to send him to the grave. And in fact, in some of the ahadith that you find that the next morning, the man actually died. He died, right? So it happened as he expected it to be. So this whole thing about, the emotions, it's something, as you see, Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen mentioned it, it is something well studied even by the people of disbelief. And they do experiments to show the power of the mind and the power of expectation. I'll give an example. I'll give you 2-3 examples. An example of where they take these students and they said that we're going to give you these electric currents on your heads, and they give headaches. They give you headaches. So we're going to bring you in. So they put these plates on the heads. They put whatever, and they say this is going to give you a headache, right? So what happens is that actually they gave them nothing. There's no electric current or anything going through. It's just there's nothing even there. So then when the students go back and they find that 70%, 7 in 10 actually started reporting that they were getting headaches, right? And so this is the power of the mind, making it's like a self-fulfilling, just like this man said that this humma, tuziruhu al-qubur, it makes people go to the graves. Well, that's right, yeah, it will take you to the grave, because if that's your belief, right? And there are many experiments like this. They call it a psychogenic illness, where you make yourself ill. You make yourself ill. They even have research here. There's a paper here that illness expectations predict the development of, like in the winter season, this is proper research done, like controlled, that if you expect to get ill in the winter, then you are likely to actually be ill, right? The research done on taking hundreds of volunteers, and they look at their expectations, then they check to see who became ill, who never became ill, and conclusions, these results support the hypothesis of self-fulfilling prophecy mechanism related to, in this case, influenza-like symptoms, right? So basically, if you anticipate and expect that you are going to be ill, then it is shown through research that you are more likely to actually become ill. So it's as if you are making yourself ill by your actual expectation, right? So this is proven and shown. We're not here trying to show, look at this proves the hadith of the Messenger. No, we're not saying that. We don't need this to prove the hadith of the Messenger of Allah. We're just showing that this is something real, observed. The scholars of the Muslims, they speak about it. And illness the mind has a powerful role in actual generating illness. Right? So you can either be optimistic, as the Messenger of Allah was telling this man, La ba'as tahur inshallah, and you be optimistic and think, yes, inshallah, I will be cured, inshallah, this is nothing, this is a purification, it's this, and you have optimistic outlook. That will then affect your body in, working in a way that it works on the cure in the background. Or you can be negative and pessimistic and expect the worst, and so it will be, as the Messenger said, as Ibn Hajar said, فَكَانَ كَمَا ظَنَنْتَ. It will be as you expect it and as you think it to be. Right? So this shows that this, now coming back now, so once we've made that diversion and we come back here to this man, to the, to this polytheist, this man is he's a polytheist, and lost where I am now. So we come to the end, coming to the end of what he said, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah. So he says, فَهُنَا أُمُورٌ ثَلَاثَةٌ. So he's coming back to summarize the principles of medicine, of the three principles of medicine. He says there are three things. Number one, مُوَافَقَةُ الدَّوَاءِ لِلدَّاءِ. Right? So the medicine has to correspond to the illness. Right? It has to be like for like. It has to be correspond. Number two, وَبَذْلُ الطَّبِيبِ لَهُ. The physician, in this case the raqi, has to expend his efforts to do so. Right? So what is the cure here? It is al-Fatiha. And the person using it is the raqi. So he's got to expend the effort, meaning that he's got to bring all those things together, the asrar, the ma'ani, and everything. And then وَقُبُولْ طَبِيعَةَ الْعَلِيلِ. So the sick person, his tabi'ah, his nature has to be receptive. To the treatment, to the cure. فَمَتَى تَخَلَّفَ وَاحِدٌ مِنْهَا لَمْ يَحْصُلْ الشِّفَاء وَإِذَا اجْتَمَعَتْ حَصَلَ الشِّفَاء وَلَا بُدَّ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. So when all these three things come together, then by necessity the healing will happen. And if one of them disappears, if one of them is not present, then it will not occur. So now this was the second one, right? So the first one was the hadith that proves al-Fatiha is a cure. The second one here, he has illustrated by way of the principles of medicine. The principles of medicine, that you treat an opposite with an opposite. You treat a thing with its opposite, right? And we gave the example of either something physical, which is the poison, and al-Fatiha is the opposite of that, or it can be the evil eye. Al-Fatiha is the opposite is the cure for the sicknesses of the heart that came from the one who gave the evil eye, right? So in both respects, the heart or the body, al-Fatiha is a cure. How is it a cure? It depends on the strength of the person bringing it and the receptiveness of the person who's receiving the treatment. So the third, I said, is he gives an example from experience, right? So we said from the Sunnah, from the qawaid of Tibb, and the third one is tajriba, is personal experience. And personal experience is an acceptable, valid, something can be used in medicine. This whole idea where you have to have a randomized control study and systematic review, this didn't exist before. How were people healing themselves and curing themselves for thousands of years before the modern idea of the peer review, systematic review, random controlled trial? No, this is the monopoly that's been created to keep medicine in a monopoly. But there were no such things in the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu. Right? Are you going to come and say, show me a randomized controlled trial of, to show that al-Fatiha? Who's going to speak like this? Are you going to speak like this about the revelation and the Sunnah? Right? So tajriba, experience, is valid in medicine. Tajriba. This is how people learn. This is how people develop the medicine. Right? It is valid. So now the third type, so the Sunnah, principles of medicine, Now it is tajriba, meaning from personal experience. So he says, وَأَمَّا شَهَادَةُ التَّجَارُبِ بِذَلِكَ. Right? This is shahadat. Shahada of the Sunnah, shahada of the qawaid of tib, and the shahada of personal experience. So he says, وَأَمَّا شَهَادَةُ التَّجَارُبِ بِذَلِكَ فَهِيَ أَكْثَرُ مِنْ أَن تُذْكَرَ وَذَلِكَ فِي كُلِّ زَمَانٍ. These experiences are so many, right? There are so many that when you collate them, there are so many of these types of experiences. He says, وَذَلِكَ فِي كُلِّ زَمَانٍ, in every age and era, وَقَدْ جَرَبْتُ أَنَا مِنْ ذَلِكَ فِي نَفْسِي وَفِي غَيْرِي أُمُورًا عَجِيبًا. I have experienced this myself personally, and others have, amazing affairs. Especially in the time which I was resident in Mecca, عزها الله تعالى, may Allah make it strong and mighty. He said, فَإِنَّهُ كَانَ يَعْرِضُ لِي آلام مُزْعِجَةً. I used to be afflicted with really painful, horrendous, illnesses and pains, where even I was unable to move. I wasn't able to move, have any motion. وَذَلِكَ فِي أَثْنَاءِ الطَّوَافِ وَغَيْرِهِ. This is during tawaf and other than tawaf. So I would read al-Fatiha, and I would wipe, the place of pain or the whatever it was, and it is as if فَكَأَنَّهُ حُسَاتٌ تَسْقُطْ. It's as if pebbles are dropping one by one, and the pain's just dissipating just like that. And جَرَبْتُ ذَلِكَ مِرَارًا عَدِيدًا. I experienced this so it's not just like once it happened, but it's repeatedly that this happens. وَكُنْتُ آخِذُ قَدْحًا مِنْ مَاءِ زَمْزَمْ. So I would take a container with Zamzam water, I would recite upon it Al-Fatiha numerous times, I would drink it, and I would find such benefit and strength which I never had before in this treatment. وَالْأَمْرُ أَعْظَمُ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. The affair is much bigger than this. وَلَكِنْ بِحَسَبِ قُوَّةِ الْإِيمَانِ. But it is in accordance with the strength of Iman, right? So where's the cure lying? It has to be behind it, there has to be strength of Iman. وَصِحَّةِ الْيَقِينِ. There has to be sound certainty, absolute. So you got to believe in the thing, right? Wallahu al-musta'an. And from Allah is aid sought. This brings us to the end, really, of this section, to the end of that. And so to summarize, basically, then we've looked at another lofty affair which is in Al-Fatiha, which is Shifa'ul Qulub wa Shifa'ul Abdan. Both, one or the other. In fact, let me go back. Ibn Al-Qayyim said, shahadat of tajriba, of experience. Even now we know from many personal experiences, you have many of these groups where people put in their medical experiences and they share experiences. And there are people who, they say that we cured this person's ailment with Al-Fatiha, just your recitation, and we cured this person's ailment. This is known, as Ibn Al-Qayyim said, that this is in every, fi kulli zaman. This tajriba is known by people who have that yaqeen, who have that certainty, who have that persistence, and they bring all the elements that we mentioned of the shifa, the components that we mentioned earlier on, shifa of the qulub, shifa of the abdan. In fact, one other point I forgot to mention is that the shifa of the qulub is the asal for the shifa of the abdan. Right? Now, the way to understand this is think about it, because we know that sins, really the origin of illnesses and sicknesses is aslan, it is sin, right? Sin. Right? Sin is what brings these trials and tribulation calamities. Now the sin itself, what's the sin emanating from? The sin has to emanate from the sicknesses of the heart. Fasadul ilm, fasadul qasd. Right? So for you to have committed a sin, it's got to be shahwa, it's got to be shuh, it's got to be hasad, it's got to be bukhl, it's got to be one of these things for which you committed the sin. It's got to be dhulm, it's got to be whatever. So when you commit the sin, you now commit a sin. You steal, you murder, you commit zina, you whatever it might be. So you're committing these sins. These actions, as a rule in Allah's creation, somehow, we don't know how, but Allah Azza wa Jal, these actions turn into punishments through the scheme of Allah's creation in a way that He knows. So this now turns into punishment. Those punishments, as Ibn al-Qayyim mentions somewhere else, can take various forms. It can be a famine, it can be a tyrannical ruler, it can be diseases, it can be anxieties and grief, right? So when all of that happens, then we come back. So then where do we come back to treat the asal of the problem? It is the healing of the heart that's going to cure the disease, the physical diseases that aslan, where did they come from? From the amrad of the qulub. Do you get the connection, the link that we're making here? The point being that all physical illnesses and ailments, because aslan they come because of sin, that sin itself must have come from the diseases of the hearts, right? And so therefore, if you want the bodies to be cured, you have to first cure the hearts, right? So meaning that the heart has to be cured first with the things that were mentioned before you even go to the other things, right? Then you have to, then you cure the physical aspects if the heart is cured. And so all of this ties into the fact what Ibn al-Qayyim said at the very end, that there has to be sihhatul yaqeen, and there has to be true iman, and there has to be true certainty and true iman, that you firmly believe all these things and you come at the disease of the heart or the body with all of this understanding, and inshallah that will lead to the cure. So inshallah we'll end our lesson there for today, and we'll conclude. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi.